At my brother Ryan's Yale Law graduation gala, after I paid $15,000, 0 cents, yearly to fund his dream, he sneered, "You're done here. Get lost." And Mom laughed. "You never knew your place." I walked away, but their triumph hid a secret that would soon unravel everything. I still hear the screams sometimes, sharp and jagged, slicing through the sterile hum of Harborview Medical Center's ER. It was 2:37 a.m. on a rain-soaked Seattle night in January 2021, and I was 32 years old, a trauma nurse with blood on my scrubs and a pounding headache from pulling my third double shift that week. My name's Emily Harper, and I was there, crouched behind a gurney, shielding a teenage gunshot victim as bullets tore through the ER. The shooter, a grieving father crazed by loss, was screaming about revenge, his gun swinging wildly. I thought, this is it. This is how I die. But even as my heart slammed against my ribs, my mind wasn't on my own survival. It was on my brother, Ryan, and the $15,000 0 cents check I'd written for his Yale Law tuition just hours earlier. If I died here, who would keep his dream alive? The air smelled of antiseptic and copper, the floor slick with spilled IV fluid, and worse. My patient, a kid no older than 17, was bleeding out from a gang wound, his eyes wide with terror. "Don't let me die," he whispered, his voice barely audible over the chaos. I pressed my hands against his chest, trying to stem the flow, my own breath shallow as I scanned for the shooter. He was 20 feet away, firing at a rival gang member who'd stumbled into the ER for treatment. Nurses screamed, patients dove for cover, and the security guard was already down, blood pooling under him. I saw my coworker Jess, her blonde ponytail swinging, dragging an elderly patient behind a desk. She caught my eye, mouthed, "Stay down," and I nodded, but I couldn't move. The kid needed me. A bullet ricocheted off a monitor, shattering glass above my head. Shards rained down, one slicing my forearm, but I barely felt it. My training kicked in. Focus, prioritize, survive. I whispered to the kid, "You're gonna be okay, stay with me," even as I doubted my own words. The shooter's voice cracked, raw with rage. "You took my son." Another shot. My radio crackled with police chatter. SWAT was 5 minutes out. 5 minutes might as well have been an eternity. Why was I even here, working myself to the bone? For Ryan, my little brother, the golden boy of our family, 5 years younger and destined for greatness. Growing up in Tacoma, Washington, I'd been the responsible one, the sister who patched his skinned knees, helped with his debate prep, and worked 2 jobs at 15 to buy him the crisp suits that made him look like a future senator. Our parents, Diane and Michael Harper, had always seen him as the star. "Ryan's going to change the world," Mom would say, her eyes gleaming, while I was told to keep things steady. My dreams of medical school? Brushed off. "Nursing's more practical for you, Emily," Dad said, his tone final. So I became a trauma nurse, saving lives in Seattle's busiest ER, while Ryan chased his Yale Law degree, his ticket to the elite. That night, as I crouched in the ER, I thought about the $50,000 0 cents I'd saved for a house, now gone to cover Ryan's tuition gap. His partial scholarship hadn't been enough, and our parents were tapped out. Dad's tech startup had tanked, and Mom's gambling debts had drained their accounts. When Ryan got into Yale in 2020, his acceptance letter was a family triumph, but the $15,000 0 cents annual shortfall loomed like a guillotine. At a tense dinner in Tacoma, Mom had said, "We'll find a way," her voice tight, but Ryan's face fell, his confidence crumbling. I couldn't let him lose this. 2 weeks later, I met him at our favorite diner, the Rusty Anchor, and slid a check across the table. "I'm covering your first year," I said, my voice steady despite the knot in my stomach. His eyes filled with tears. "Em, I'll pay you back every cent, I swear," he said, hugging me so tight I could barely breathe. For a moment, I felt like the hero he needed. But heroes don't last long in my family. That night in the ER, as I prayed for SWAT to arrive, I wondered if Ryan even knew what I was risking. The shooter fired again, and I flinched, my hand slipping on the kid's wound. Blood seeped through my fingers, warm and sticky. "Stay with me," I urged, my voice cracking. The kid's pulse weakened, and I fought panic. I couldn't lose him, not after everything, not when I was already losing so much. The police stormed in at 2:43 a.m., their shouts drowning out the screams. The shooter went down in a hail of gunfire, his body crumpling 10 feet from me. Silence followed, heavy and surreal, broken only by sobs and the beep of a flatlining monitor. I kept pressure on the kid's wound until paramedics took over, my arms shaking. He made it to surgery, barely. I stumbled to the break room, my scrubs soaked in blood, and collapsed into a chair. Jess found me, her face pale. "You okay?" she asked. I nodded, lying. My arm throbbed, the cut deeper than I'd thought, but I refused stitches. I had another shift in 6 hours. That night wasn't the first time I'd faced danger for Ryan's dream, and it wouldn't be the last. Over 5 years, I'd pay $75,000, 0 cents for his tuition, face death in the ER, fight off a carjacker, dodge a stalker, and survive a car crash that nearly killed me. I'd risk my nursing license, my home, my health, everything. And for what? To stand at Ryan's Yale Law graduation in 2025, my heart swelling with pride, only to hear him sneer, "You're done here, get lost," while Mom cackled, "You never knew your place," surrounded by his elite lawyer friends. Their words cut deeper than any bullet, leaving me to wonder, was I ever more than a bank to them? This is my story, raw and unfiltered, of how I fought for my brother's dream and lost my family in the process. It's a story of sacrifice, betrayal, and the truth we uncover when everything falls apart. If you've ever given everything for someone who didn't care, you'll understand. And if you're wondering how I survived, what I did next, stick with me. The truth is messier than you think. The rain was still pounding Seattle when I left Harborview at 6 a.m., my arm bandaged and my mind numb. I drove to my cramped apartment in Capitol Hill, the wipers slapping rhythmically, and checked my phone. A text from Ryan. "Thanks for the check, Em. You're the best." I stared at it, wanting to feel warmth, but all I felt was exhaustion. I'd written that $15,000, 0 cents check after selling my old car, a beat-up Honda I'd loved, to cover his first-year tuition. It was the first of many sacrifices, each one carving away a piece of me. Growing up, our house in Tacoma was a shrine to Ryan's potential. His debate trophies lined the mantel, his report cards framed like art. I was the shadow, the one who made sure he had clean clothes for competitions while I wore hand-me-downs. Mom would say, "Emily, make sure Ryan's speech is ready," even when I had my own homework piling up. Dad, always distracted by his failing startup, nodded along. My straight A's were met with, "That's nice, honey," before they pivoted to Ryan's latest win. I didn't resent him then. He was my little brother, with his goofy smile and endless questions, and I loved him fiercely. But love has a price. When Ryan got into Yale, the family threw a party that felt like a coronation. Mom rented a banquet hall. Dad gave a teary toast to Ryan, the first Harper to make it big. I stood in the back, washing dishes with the caterers, smiling through the ache in my chest. Later, Ryan found me, his tie loosened, his face flushed with champagne. "I can't believe I'm going," he said, his voice soft. "I always knew you would," I replied, meaning it. He hugged me, and for a moment we were kids again, dreaming big. The financial reality hit hard. Yale's tuition was a mountain, and Ryan's scholarship only covered part of it. Mom and Dad were drowning. Dad's startup had left them with $200,000, 0 cents in debt, and Mom's late-night casino trips had wiped out their savings. At dinner, Ryan pushed food around his plate, his usual confidence gone. "Maybe I'll defer," he mumbled. Mom snapped, "We'll get a loan." But her voice shook. I saw the fear in Ryan's eyes, and something in me broke. I couldn't let him lose this. 2 weeks later, I met him at the Rusty Anchor at the diner where we'd shared milkshakes as kids. The check I gave him was more than money. It was my future, my dream of a house, my safety net. "Em, this is too much," he said, his eyes wide. "You can and you will," I said, forcing a smile. "Just be the best lawyer you can be." He hugged me, promising to repay every penny, and I believed him. Mom and Dad were relieved, but their gratitude was thin. "You're good with money, Emily," Mom said, already turning to Ryan's class schedule. Dad patted my shoulder, awkward and brief. I told myself it was enough. That fall, I helped Ryan move into his New Haven apartment, a tiny studio with creaky floors. We spent the weekend unpacking, eating pizza, and laughing about his law school nerves. "You're my hero, Em," he said, and I felt a glow I hadn't felt in years. At his first-year celebration dinner, he raised a glass to me. "To Emily, my rock. I wouldn't be here without her." The room clapped, and for once I wasn't in the shadow. I thought, this is worth it. But the cracks were already forming. By his second year, Ryan changed. He'd call less, his texts curt. When I got promoted to charge nurse, a big deal at Harborview, I told him over dinner at my apartment. "That's cool," he said, scrolling through his phone. "Did I mention I'm clerking for Judge Hawthorne next summer? His son's at Yale, total legacy." His voice dripped with awe for his new world, a world of trust funds and connected family. I swallowed my hurt, sipped my wine, and said, "That's amazing, Rye." But inside I felt smaller. Then came the carjacking. It was 3 a.m., a month after the hospital shooting, and I was leaving Harborview, my legs heavy from a 16-hour shift. I was fumbling for my keys when a man stepped from the shadows, a gun glinting in his hand. "Give me the car," he growled. My heart stopped, but I threw my keys, hoping he'd take them and go. He didn't. He grabbed my arm, yanking me toward the passenger door. "Get in," he said, and I knew if I did, I wouldn't come back. I don't know where the strength came from, but I twisted free, slamming my elbow into his face. He staggered, and I ran, my sneakers pounding the wet pavement, my breath ragged. I hid behind a dumpster, shaking, until police lights flashed. They caught him 2 blocks away. I didn't sleep for days, but I went back to work. Ryan needed me. He didn't even call when I told him. "That's rough, Em," he texted. "Glad you're okay." I stared at the screen, my chest tight. The $15,000 0 cents checks kept coming, each one harder to write. I took out a personal loan, $20,000 0 cents at 8% interest, to cover his second year. When I defaulted on a payment, my credit score tanked, and my landlord threatened eviction. I moved to a cheaper studio, the walls thin enough to hear my neighbors' fights. Lucas, my boyfriend, a paramedic with kind eyes and a steady heart, saw it all. "They're using you, Em," he said one night, his voice low. "You're not their daughter, you're their bank." I defended them, but his words lingered. Ryan's spending didn't help. His Instagram was a parade of excess $500 0 cents dinners at Manhattan steakhouses, Hampton's weekends with classmates whose parents owned law firms. "Treating myself after exams," he captioned a photo of a $300 0 cents bottle of wine. Meanwhile, he'd call me, stressed. "Em, I'm short on rent. Can you spot me $1,000 0 cents? I sent it, canceling my own dental appointment to cover it. When I saw a post about a mandatory law conference that was actually a luxury retreat in Aspen costing me $2,500 0 cents, I snapped. "Ryan, what's with the spending?" I asked over the phone. His voice turned cold. "You're controlling, Em. I'm under pressure you wouldn't get. Not everyone can just be a nurse." The word just hit like a slap. I hung up, tears burning my eyes. Then there was the stalker, a patient I'd treated, a man with wild eyes and a history of violence, fixated on me after I saved his life. He started leaving notes at my apartment. "You're mine, Emily." One night, I found a photo of me, taken outside Harborview, taped to my door. I got a restraining order, changed my locks, but the fear followed me. I carried pepper spray, checked my rearview mirror constantly. Ryan didn't know. I didn't tell him. He was too busy with his law review publication, which Mom and Dad celebrated like he'd won a Nobel Prize. My 30th birthday came and went, forgotten. Mom sent a belated card. Ryan didn't call. My health started cracking. Heart palpitations woke me at night, my chest tight, my vision blurry. My cardiologist, Dr. Patel, was blunt. "Your stress is killing you, Emily. Cut back, or you're looking at a heart attack by 40. I nodded, but cutting back wasn't an option. Ryan's third year brought more costs. Bar exam prep, suits for interviews. I worked 80-hour weeks, picking up extra shifts. One night, a violent patient in the ER slammed me against a wall, my head cracking on the tile. I had a concussion but was back at work in 3 days. I couldn't afford to stop. The malpractice lawsuit was the worst. A patient's family sued after a chaotic shift where I'd made a charting error under pressure. My license was at risk, my career on the line. I spent $5,000, 0 cents, on a lawyer, dipping into my emergency fund. The case was dropped, but the stress left scars. Lucas held me as I cried, his voice fierce. "You're killing yourself for them, Em. When's it enough?" I didn't have an answer. By Ryan's 5th year, I was a ghost of myself. The car crash came in April 2025 after a 20-hour shift. I fell asleep at the wheel, my car veering into a guardrail. Metal screamed, glass shattered, and I woke in the ER, my own colleagues stitching my forehead. "You're lucky to be alive," Jess said, her eyes wet. I'd totaled my car, racked up $10,000, 0 cents in medical bills, but I wrote Ryan's final $15,000, 0 cents check from my hospital bed. I'd made a promise. Graduation day was May 2025, a crisp New Haven morning. I flew to Yale, my forehead still bandaged, my heart full despite everything. Ryan walked across the stage, his smile radiant, and I cried, proud and broken. I'd given him a custom engraved leather briefcase, a $3,000, 0 cents gift that took 3 months' savings. I thought it symbolized his future, our bond. I was wrong. At the rooftop gala in Manhattan, the air sparkled with wealth. Ryan's classmates in designer suits talked of clerkships and 6-figure jobs. I felt out of place in my clearance rack dress, my hands calloused from IV lines. Ryan's speech was eloquent, thanking Mom, Dad, his professors, his friends. Not me. Not a word about the $75,000, 0 cents, the dangers, the years I'd given. I approached him later, the briefcase bag heavy in my hand. "Congrats, Rye," I said, smiling. He glanced over my shoulder, distracted. "Thanks, Em. Gotta mingle." I offered the gift. He peeked inside, set it aside. "I'll check it later. Look, you're done here. Get lost." His voice was ice, his eyes hard. I froze, my breath catching. Mom appeared, champagne in hand, her laugh sharp. "Oh, Emily, you never knew your place," she said, smirking as Ryan's friends chuckled. "This is Ryan's world now. Maybe chat with the waiters. They're more your speed." The room spun, their laughter echoing. I set my glass down, walked to the elevator, Lucas catching up. "Em, what happened?" he asked. I shook my head, tears falling. In the cab, my phone buzzed. "Mom, Stop being dramatic. You ruined his night." I turned it off, staring at the city lights, my world collapsing. Back in Seattle, I called in sick, my first time in years. I sat on my balcony, the Puget Sound glittering below, and wondered who I was without my family's demands. Lucas brought coffee, sat quietly. "They don't deserve you," he said finally. I didn't reply, but something shifted. The sister who'd given everything was gone. What came next, I didn't know, but I was done being their bank, their shadow, their sacrifice. What did Ryan hide from me those years he spent, my money like water? Why did Mom's laughter feel like a knife she'd been sharpening for years? And what truth about our family would unravel everything I thought I knew? I'm Emily Harper, and this is just the beginning. The Seattle rain was relentless, hammering my apartment window like it wanted to break through. It was June 2025, 3 weeks since my brother Ryan's Yale law graduation, where he'd dismissed me with a venomous, "You're done here, get lost." And my mother, Diane, had cackled, "You never knew your place," her laughter echoing with Ryan's elite lawyer friends.
"I'm Emily Harper, 32, a trauma nurse at Harborview Medical Center."
And I'd poured $75,000, 0 cents, my health and nearly my life into Ryan's dream. Now I sat on my sagging couch in a cramped Capitol Hill studio, an eviction notice taped to my door, my heart racing with betrayal and dread. My phone buzzed with Diane's text. "Apologize to Ryan for ruining his day. Ryan's was worse. You embarrassed me. Grow up." I deleted them, but their words burned. Had I ever been more than a bank to them? And what secret was Ryan hiding that made his cruelty feel so calculated? My apartment smelled of damp and regret, the walls thin enough to hear my neighbor's TV blaring. The eviction notice was a gut punch, $2,300, 0 cents in back rent, due in 10 days. I'd prioritized Ryan's tuition over my bills, defaulting on a $20,000, 0 cents loan that tanked my credit. My dream of a waterfront condo had slipped away last month, the final $15,000, 0 cents tuition payment swallowing my deposit. I'd given up my $50,000, 0 cents house fund, my car, my health, everything. For what? To be erased at Ryan's gala, my sacrifices mocked by the family I'd fought for. I clutched a cold coffee, my hands trembling from heart palpitations Dr. Patel had warned could kill me. My phone rang, shattering the silence. It was Jess, my coworker at Harborview, her voice tight. "Em, we're drowning in the ER. They're talking layoffs, and your name's on the list if you don't show up." My chest tightened. Losing my job would mean losing my apartment, my loan payments, my life. "I'm on my way," I said, grabbing my scrubs. As I left, I found a note slipped under my door, unsigned. "You'll pay for what you did." My blood ran cold. Was it the stalker patient from last year who'd left photos of me outside Harborview? Or was it tied to Ryan's lies, something darker I couldn't yet see? The ER was a war zone, blood and screams blending into a chaotic symphony. A multi-care pile-up had flooded us with patients, and I dove in, suturing gashes, stabilizing fractures, ignoring the throbbing in my head from a recent concussion. During a rare break, I checked Instagram, a habit I hated but couldn't quit. Ryan's latest post stopped me dead. A $500, 0 cents steak dinner at the Capitol Grill in Manhattan, his arm around a woman in a Gucci dress, captioned, "Living the Dream, Yale Law Grad." My stomach churned. Just last week he'd texted, "Em, I'm broke, need $1,000, 0 cents for rent." I'd sent it, skipping my own groceries to scrape it together. How could he afford this? And who was she? The patient's scream yanked me back, but Ryan's post festered. That night, after a grueling 16-hour shift, I called him, my voice shaking. Ryan, what's with the $500 0 cents dinners? You said you couldn't pay rent. His laugh was razor sharp. Spying on me, Em? I'm under pressure you wouldn't get. You're just a nurse. Stop sabotaging my focus. The word sabotage hit like a slap. I'm not sabotaging you, I said, tears burning. I'm trying to understand how you're broke but living like a king. He scoffed. You're so small-minded. I'm building connections. You wouldn't know. He hung up, leaving me staring at my phone, my world tilting. The next morning, Diane called, her tone dripping venom. Emily, you're upsetting Ryan. He deserves to celebrate his grueling studies. Why can't you be happy for him? I gripped the phone, my knuckles white. Mom, he's lying. I sent him $1,000 0 cents last week and he's posting about $500 0 cents dinners. Her voice turned glacial. He's networking with people who matter. You wouldn't understand. You never went to college. Stop making this about you. She hung up, and I sank to the floor, my chest so tight I could barely breathe. Was I losing my mind? Or was Ryan hiding something bigger? The hospital's layoff threat was a guillotine. Dr. Kessler, my supervisor, pulled me aside. Emily, you're our best nurse, but budget cuts are brutal. Miss another shift, and you're gone. I nodded, panic clawing at me. Losing my job would end me. I couldn't pay rent, let alone the loan I'd defaulted on. That night, as I left Harborview, a man lunged from the shadows, his fist slamming into my jaw. Pain exploded, stars bursting in my vision. I stumbled, but my training kicked in. I need him, my scrubs tearing as I scrambled away. You'll regret this, he snarled, his face hidden by a hoodie. I ran to my car, my heart pounding. Was it the stalker, or had Ryan's lies dragged me into something sinister? I reported the assault to police, but they had no leads. At home, I iced my jaw, my mind racing. Lucas, my boyfriend, stayed over, his paramedic calm a lifeline. Them. This isn't random, he said, his eyes dark. The note. The attack. Someone's targeting you. I shook my head, but doubt crept in. Ryan's Instagram flashed in my mind. Hampton's weekends, $300, 0 cents bottles of wine. A woman with cold eyes and a diamond necklace. Who was she? And why did Ryan's lies feel like a web I was caught in? Another note appeared 2 days later, taped to my car. Stop digging or you'll lose more than money. My hands shook as I called the police, who dismissed it as a prank. Fear followed me everywhere, my palpitations worsening. At work, I was a machine, saving lives while my own unraveled. Then came the car crash. It was 4 a.m. after a 20-hour shift, my eyes burning with exhaustion. I swerved to avoid a deer. My rental car, my old one totaled months ago, slamming into a tree. Metal screamed, glass shattered, and I woke in Harborview's ER, my colleague stitching my forehead. You're lucky, Jess said, tears in her eyes. I wasn't. My medical bills hit $12,000 0 cents. My rental car was gone, but I wrote Ryan's final $15,000 0 cents check from my hospital bed. I'd promised him. Graduation day was May 28, 2025, a crisp New Haven morning. I flew to Yale, my forehead bandaged, my body aching from the crash. Ryan walked across the stage, his smile radiant, and I cried, torn between pride and pain. I'd spent 3 months' savings on a custom engraved leather briefcase, a $3,000 0 cents gift symbolizing his future. I thought it would remind him of our bond. I was wrong. The Manhattan rooftop gala was a world of wealth I didn't belong to. Ryan's classmates in Armani suits talked of clerkships and 6-figure jobs. Their parents, dripping in diamonds, boasted of law firm partnerships. I stood awkwardly in my clearance rack dress, my hands calloused from IV lines, feeling like an intruder. Ryan's speech was a dagger. He thanked Mom, Dad, his professors, his friends, everyone but me. Not a word about the $75,000, 0 cents, the hospital shooting, the carjacking, the stalker, the concussion, the crash. I approached him, the briefcase bag heavy in my hand. "Congrats, Rye," I said, forcing a smile. He glanced over my shoulder, distracted. "Thanks, Em. Gotta mingle." I offered the gift. He peeked inside, tossed it on a table. "I'll check it later. Look, you're done here. Get lost." His voice was ice, his eyes hard. Mom appeared, champagne flute in hand, her laugh sharp. "Oh, Emily, you never knew your place," she said, smirking as Ryan's friends chuckled. "This is Ryan's world now. Try the waiters. They're your speed." The room spun, their laughter a chorus of betrayal. I set my glass down, walked to the elevator, Lucas catching up. "Em? What happened?" he asked, his face tight with worry. I shook my head, tears falling. In the cab, my phone buzzed. "Mom, stop being dramatic. You ruined his night." "Ryan, you're so selfish." I turned it off, the Manhattan lights blurring through my tears. Back in Seattle, I called in sick, my first time in years. I couldn't face the ER, couldn't fake strength. I sat on my balcony, the Puget Sound glittering, and felt like I was drowning. Lucas brought coffee, sat quietly. "They don't deserve you," he said finally. I didn't reply, but something broke inside me. I was done being their shadow, their bank, their sacrifice. But the notes, the attack, something was coming, and I was. A week later, I started therapy with Dr. Sarah Chen, a family dynamics expert. Her office was warm, with soft lighting and a view of Elliott Bay. I brought a photo album, flipping through memories that now felt like lies. "Here's Ryan's 12th birthday," I said, pointing to a lavish party with a hired DJ. "And here's my 16th. Mom forgot the cake." Dr. Chen listened, her eyes kind but sharp. "You were the scapegoat, Emily," she said. "Ryan was the golden child, and your parents built a system around his success. Your role was to serve, not shine." The words hit hard, unlocking years of pain. We talked about family systems, emotional neglect, and how I'd internalized my worth as what I could give. "They're fighting to keep you in that role," she said. "This is their extinction burst." I started journaling, spilling memories onto pages. Mom dismissing my straight A's because Ryan won a debate. Dad missing my nursing graduation for Ryan's law school tour. The journal became a lifeline, but the fear didn't stop. Another note appeared, this time inside my mailbox. "You're running out of time." I installed a security camera, but it caught nothing. Lucas urged me to move, but I couldn't afford it. The eviction notice loomed, my bank account at $87.00. Then came Diane's lawsuit threat. I'd confided in Jess about Ryan's betrayal, needing someone to hear me. Somehow it got back to Mom. She called, her voice a hiss. "You're spreading lies about Ryan, Emily. I'll sue you for defamation if you don't stop." I laughed, bitter. "Lies? I have bank statements, Mom. $75,000, 0 cents of my money." She paused, then said, "You owed us. You didn't go to law school like Ryan." The call ended, but her threat lingered. Was she serious? Could she destroy me legally? I wrote a 15-page letter that night, every word raw. I detailed the $75,000, 0 cents, the shooting, the carjacking, the stalker, the concussion, the crash. I wrote about Ryan's lies, Mom's laughter, Dad's silence. I poured out the pain of being invisible, of loving a family that didn't love me back. I didn't send it. Instead, I burned it in my kitchen sink. The flames curling black, a symbolic release of the role I'd played too long. The smoke stung my eyes, but I felt lighter, like I'd shed a skin. I joined a hiking club, a small act of defiance. On a trail overlooking Mount Rainier, the air crisp and clean, I laughed for the first time in months. I was allowed to exist, to breathe, to be more than Ryan's bank, but the notes kept coming. each one darker. You can't run from this. I told Dr. Chin, who urged me to trust my instincts. Someone's threatened by your awakening, she said. Be careful. Dad called in August, his voice heavy. Emily, we need a family meeting. This rift has to end. Sunday, 6 p.m., our house in Tacoma. I hesitated, but Dr. Chen helped me prepare role-playing scenarios. You can't control them, only your response, she said. I agreed to go, but alone. Lucas offered to come, but this was my fight. The Tacoma house was unchanged, a museum of Ryan's glory. His trophies gleamed, my nursing degree absent from the walls. Mom, Dad, and Ryan sat in the living room, arranged like a tribunal. I took the single chair, my folder of bank statements heavy in my bag. Mom started before I sat. Emily, your behavior is unacceptable. You ruined Ryan's graduation with your drama. I stayed calm, my voice steady. I ruined nothing. I left when you and Ryan humiliated me. Ryan rolled his eyes. You're so dramatic, Em. It was a misunderstanding. Dad tried to mediate, his face tired. We get you felt hurt, Emily, but family doesn't expect recognition. I opened my folder, placing bank statements on the table. This is what family looks like from my side. $75,000 0 cents in tuition, $7,000 0 cents in extras, rent, conferences, suits. Dad reached for the papers, his expression shifting. Mom scoffed. What's this, a bill? It's proof, I said. Since you forgot what I gave? Ryan's face hardened. You offered, Em. Nobody forced you. I nodded. I offered because I loved you. I expected respect, not to be told I don't belong after risking my life for you. Mom snapped. You were hovering, making Ryan uncomfortable. I laughed, bitter. Hovering? I paid for his degree. If I was so uncomfortable, why invite me? Dad, flipping through the statements, looked shaken. Emily, I didn't know it was this much. Then Ryan dropped the bomb. She's exaggerating, he said, his voice tight. And anyway, I took a $20,000 0 cents loan in her name to cover my last year. She's fine with it. My world stopped. You what? I whispered, my voice shaking. He shrugged. You were always going to pay. I just made it easier. I stood, my vision blurring. You forged my name? Stole my identity? Mom waved it off. You owed us, Emily. Ryan's the lawyer, not you. Dad closed the folder, his voice low. Diane, this is wrong. Emily sacrificed everything, Ryan snapped. She's no martyr, she chose this. I grabbed my folder, my voice steadied despite the rage. I'm done. No more money, no more lies. I walked out, the door slamming behind me. In my car, I sobbed, the weight of Ryan's fraud crushing me. But Dad's words, his regret, lit a spark. Maybe one person saw me. Driving back to Seattle, I felt a strange freedom, like I'd finally broken a chain. 3 months later, my life was unrecognizable. Free from Ryan's drain, I saved enough for a waterfront condo, small but mine. I became head nurse at Harborview, partnering with a hospital to fund trauma training programs. Lucas proposed on a hike overlooking the Cascades, his vintage ring glinting in the sun. You're enough, Em. Dad reached out in December, meeting me for coffee. He looked older, his eyes heavy. He slid an envelope across the table. $25,000, 0 cents, and a letter of apology. I failed you, he wrote. This is a start. He revealed he'd divorced Mom, her refusal to see my worth a breaking point. We talked for hours, rebuilding something fragile but real. Ryan emailed 6 months later, his tone humbled. I'm struggling at my firm, he wrote. I took you for granted. Can we talk? We met for coffee, his face gaunt from stress. I didn't see what you gave up, he said. I was chasing a world that's eating me alive. It wasn't a full apology, but it was a start. I founded a scholarship for first-generation nurses, a legacy of healing. The first recipient, a single mom studying while working retail, wrote a thank you letter that brought me to tears. My pain didn't define me. My strength did. The note stopped. The attacker never caught, but I wasn't afraid anymore. I'd faced worse and survived. Ryan's loan fraud cost me years of credit repair, but I was free. My family's betrayal showed me my worth, not theirs. If you're reading this, know your value isn't what you give. It's who you are. And whatever Ryan's hiding, whatever Mom's planning, I'm ready. This isn't the end.